Hey Pokemon Masters, Gnoggin, Bird Keeper Toby here. Pokemon mini-theories are awesome. I love them, and I love Noggin's series of them, so I decided to continue them on. I made a total of 5, released a few, and then decided wouldn't it be cooler to compile some of them together. So today we've got some mini-theories that you'll have already seen, and hopefully some that you haven't, some of which haven't even been released yet. So today's a sort of collection of videos, 5 of my own, 5 of Lockstin's, and together they create a list of 10 mini-theories. Let us know which is your favourite in the comments below. And as I said, this is a compilation of videos and different formats, so try not to worry about the style too much. Instead, just sit back, relax, and enjoy 10 Pokemon mini-theories. Theory 1. Garchomp is one of my favourite Pokemon, but what is it? Is it a dragon? A plane? Well, apparently it's a bit of both. It also shares many similarities with the hammerhead shark. Wait, sharks? You may already have known this or speculated it for yourself that Garchomp is in some way related to the Pokemon Sharpedo, but there's more evidence than you may have initially known. The most obvious similarities come with its design. It has a similar colour palette with the star pattern on their heads. They both Mega Evolve to reveal matching spikes, and both have fins. It's all pretty neat, but there's actually more than that. Both Pokemon have the ability Rough Skin, which can only be learned by 3 evolutionary lines of Pokemon: Gibbles, Carvanhas, and the Pokemon Drugiodon, who also has many similarities in design to these Pokemon. Also, Shiny Sharpedo swaps out its blue to be rocking this pink colour, and while normal Shiny Garchomp seems, well, quite boring, we don't really know what the point of it is, Mega Shiny Garchomp is also simply fabulous. And if that wasn't one too many coincidences for you, finally Garchomp's first pre-evolutionary form is Gibble, who is known as the Landshark Pokemon. That is evolution at work. Theory 2.
MissingNo is a game-breaking glitch Pokemon found in the first games. You could stretch glitch into bug or even virus because bugs and viruses cause glitches. Deoxys is a biological virus that had its DNA mutated by a satellite, a computer. Both Deoxys and MissingNo have very high attack, but very low defense. Deoxys did exist in Ruby and Sapphire in data form, but it wasn't until the remakes of the first gen of games, Fire Red and Leaf Green, that he was catchable. Deoxys may be Game Freak's attempt to make MissingNo a real Pokemon.
Theory 3. This theory is actually one of my own. Do you remember the episode of the Pokemon TV show with a crystal Onix? It seems pretty unique and fascinating, but what if I told you it's actually just an ordinary old Onix that's underdeveloped? Onix evolves into the Pokemon Steelix by burrowing underground and ingesting iron in the earth. In the case of our underdeveloped Crystal Onix, what should happen is that the dirt and iron it would ingest would give it a rock-like coating. Over time, the consumption of more iron would turn the rocky outer layer into a metal coat, the same item used to turn an Onix into a Steelix. Not only that, but we can take a look at Steelix's Diamond Pokédex entry, which reads, "Tempered underground under high pressure and heat, its body is harder than any metal." However, most other dex entries claim that it's not just stronger than metal, but even harder than diamonds. Harder than diamonds, eh? Well, as far as we know, the only thing that could be harder than a diamond is, well, another diamond. Diamonds, like Steelix, are also usually formed underground, under intense heat and pressure. So let's recap this mini-theory so far. All Steelix have a crystal-like structure in the center of them, which is made of diamond. It hardens over time underground under intense heat and pressure, and as it eats away at the rocks and iron, it becomes surrounded by a dirt and then metal coating. I guess this poor little Crystal Onix just never learned how to use Dig. Oh, and there's one more thing. When Steelix Mega Evolves, the truth is finally revealed, because a crystal-like structure jettisons out from within Steelix's body. And that, my friends, is the Crystal Onix explained. Theory 4.
The original 3 Eeveelutions, Flareon, Jolteon, and Vaporeon. All 3 of them adorable. But once upon a time, the brass tower in Ekritique City burned down. This tower was one of Ho-Oh's roosting spots, but when it burned down, not everyone survived. As this theory states, the 3 Eeveelutions died, and Ho-Oh, upon finding them, revived them, granting them mass power at legendary levels. Now take note of this, the 3 Eeveelutions share the same typing, coloration, and abilities as the 3 legendary beasts, Raikou, Suicune, and Entei. So perhaps they are all resurrected Eeveelutions.
Theory 5. As we all know, the Pokemon world takes place in the multiverse, where each Pokemon cartridge is its own version of reality. This has been theorized to no end. But what about the human world? Is it part of the Pokemon multiverse? There is one Pokemon that may be able to answer this question. Hooper. It has interdimensional traveling capabilities and it can bend time and space at its will to create wormholes. Interestingly, one of the more documented things about Hooper is that it has stolen a palace. Take a look at its Omega Ruby Dex entry, which reads, "In its true form it possesses huge amounts of power. Legends of its avarice tell how it once carried off an entire castle to gain the treasure hidden within." It's interesting to note that the Parfum Palace in Kalos has a lot of similarities to a palace in our own world. It has large statues, a lavish garden, and a hall of mirrors, and lots of grand golden rooms, which is just like the Palace of Versailles in France. The Palace of Versailles is famous for all of these things, and it's also fitting because Kalos is based off of France, but no place in the Pokemon world bears quite the same resemblance as Parfum does to Versailles. So, is it possible that Hooper came to our world to carry off the palace? The Palace of Versailles was built by this long-haired chappie, Louis XIV, in... Wait, could it be? Theory 6.
Zoroark is a 5th generation Pokemon that can shapeshift, though, rather than shapeshifting genetically and changing its stats like Ditto, it shapeshifts with the power of illusion, and keeps its original stats. In Pokemon Black and White, we were introduced to a Zoroark that frequently got itself involved in the plot, especially when the plot involves a certain other character, N, the leader of Team Plasma, whose goal is to liberate all Pokemon. N is the only human we know of that can directly communicate with Pokemon, but perhaps this is because he is a Pokemon. Zoroark. After all, if you look at their hairstyles, they are very similar, and at one point Zoroark shows you a flashback of N. But Zoroark's nowhere to be seen. How would Zoroark even know about this flashback then? Zoroark also leads you directly into N's castle, but once you enter it, Zoroark is nowhere to be seen, but N is standing there waiting for you. We know there are plenty of other Pokemon who can talk and are very intelligent, so saying that a Zoroark is disguising himself as a Pokemon trainer is not so far-fetched. Plus, the biggest piece of evidence of all, if you take an N and turn it 90 degrees, it's a Z!
Theory 7. Don't you just love it when Pokemon references other media? Lookup is a mysterious international police agent who has been showing up ever since Platinum version to help the player take on the evil teams of each region. In Platinum version, Lookup fights off Team Galactic, in Black and White 2 it's Team Plasma, and in X and Y he's taking on a Team Flare scientist. With the fact that he travels across regions and all the games are set at different times, you may have noticed that he's based off of David Tennant's portrayal of the Doctor from Doctor Who, an alien who travels across time and space, keeping the peace. However, he does make one odd appearance, most recently in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, where the character of Lookup finds himself washed up on the battle resort. He has no idea how he got there, and the only memory he has is that he is an international police agent. However, to solve this mystery, we can just simply look at another one of the Pokemon games. Thanks to a tweet by Game Freak staff, we actually have something pretty close to a Pokemon timeline, which suggests that the Generation 1 games happen right around the time of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. So if you're still wondering how this means that Lookup ended up washed up on the battle resort, well, he must have hit his head when he went overboard. This is because on the SSN there is an NPC who claims to be an undercover global police agent. Coincidence? I think not. Theory 8.
Nintendo owns Pokemon. They also own The Legend of Zelda. The Triforce in Zelda was created by the 3 goddesses, Din, Nehru, and Faeror. And these 3 Pokemon, Uxie, Azelf, and Mesprit, were created by the Pokemon god Arceus. Each piece of the Triforce represents a different thing: wisdom, courage, and power. And each of these Pokemon represent a different thing: knowledge, emotion, and willpower. Is this a possible reference? That's the theory.
Theory 9. This is one of my favorites. Did you know it seems that Caterpie was meant to evolve into Venomoth all along? It's most apparent when you look at both of their evolutionary lines side by side. Butterfree's design is a purple body with large red eyes, a pincer-like mouth, and large antenna, just like Venonat. Meanwhile, Caterpie has a small crown, and both him and Metapod have big round eyes, kind of like Venomoth. There's a lot of debate, however, as to whether this legitimately is the case because the game's creator was a renowned bug collector, and if there was one type of Pokemon he would have been sure to get right, it would have been the bugs. That said, with these design aspects, it's possible, and this isn't the only Pokemon in Generation 1 said to be in the wrong evolutionary line. It's theorized that somewhere in development, Magikarp was supposed to evolve into Dragonite, and that Dragonair was supposed to evolve into Gyarados. This due not only to the design and colour palettes that have similarities, but also the tale that Magikarp is based off. This Chinese myth talks about carps who swim against the currents of the stream, but should one jump up a waterfall, it will transform into a dragon, which Gyarados technically isn't. Theory 10.
Ignoring the anime and such, why is it that in the Pokemon games, Pokemon can only learn 4 moves? Why, and let alone how, would a Pokemon just completely forget a move? And what about the more intelligent Pokemon like Alakazam and Slowking? You really think they're only smart enough to learn the same amount of moves as a Bidoof and a Dunsparce? And if you look at the lists of how many different options Pokemon have to choose the 4 from, it's very vast. And plus, how does a Pokemon just forget how to hit something with its fist or tail? How does it forget how to bite? Can it no longer eat? Well, here's the theory. Pokemon aren't idiots. Well, except for maybe Bidoof. But really what's happening here is just following the rules that the Pokemon League and Pokemon gyms put in place. Because of this 4-move limit rule, trainers will just tell their Pokemon to forget an old move, don't bother using it again. The Pokemon still remembers that it exists, they're not stupid. They just focus all their training on the new and better moves.
Well done, Pokemon Masters Gnoggin, we hope you enjoyed that. Let us know which mini theory was your favourite in the comments below, or if you have a mini theory of your own. And stay tuned for more Pokemon content right here on Noggin. Stay awesome.